All right. Hello, Dr. Kerry McAvoy. Thank you so much for coming on Out of Crazytown. I'm so excited to have your expertise today and to talk about what we're going to talk about.
Oh, thank you so much for having me today. It's a pleasure.
Well, I have never really done a deep dive on this podcast into cognitive dissonance. I mean, obviously, it's been mentioned numerous times in other conversations, but I really think it's worth going into because it actually took me a long time to truly grasp exactly what it was and how it affects all facets, of relationships when you're escaping narcissistic abuse. But first, I want to ask you, Kerry, before we get into it, because I'm going to have you dive into more about what cognitive dissonance is. You are a psychologist and author, an expert in narcissistic abuse recovery, and you've done so much work in cognitive dissonance. Would you mind telling everyone a little bit about your story? Because I finally started reading your book, Love You More, which I'll put in the show notes, and it's wow. Could you tell everybody, would you mind just doing a
Yeah,
little?
no, of course. Yeah. So I was in a stable relationship, married for a long time. And we were actually married, I think nearly 31 years. And my husband, my now late husband, was diagnosed with terminal cancer in 2014. And it was terminal. I mean, there was no hope from the diagnosis. It was very, very rare, no really good treatment, and it took his life in 5.5 months. So he literally went from, on the November, he was diagnosed in December. November, he came in one day and said, "This has been the best year of my life." He was really, out on a golf course doing great, and literally was gone 5.5 months later.
Oh,
So it was a devastating experience. My family, my kids were not, some were adults, but barely adults. So I had 24, 21, and a 17-year-old who was
okay.
finishing his senior year. So it was just a devastating experience. Then my senior then started college. So I went from, having the stable home to suddenly an empty nest and widowed. And we also were building a home, so we were in transition. So
Oh,
we
I
weren't
didn't
even
know
in.
that.
Yeah, we
Oh,
were we just had we were starting to pick out all the finishes, and we were about ready to break ground. And then that whole thing, of course, I didn't proceed. I couldn't afford the mortgage on the house myself, nor we were acting as our own general, nor could I have
okay.
been my own
No,
general
it is
contractor
such
either.
an undertaking, even with if you had a general contractor.
Exactly.
So yeah, I can't even imagine all of that.
Yeah, it
Wow.
was it was horrific. Our house was like in transition, so we had it in storage. I just cannot tell you and I don't know how he coped knowing he was leaving me with this big
That's a good
mess.
point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, of course he was in so much pain and life was just taking him over. So anyway, I got out and I really wanted the life that I had back. I was so angry. I was in my early 50s and I just felt massively cheated. So I was in a lot of pain, very vulnerable. I started dating right away. Met a lot of nice men, but no matches.
Okay.
So I had a lot of one and dones is what I called them.
Yeah.
And that got real tiring. It started getting discouraging because you realize that you think there's lots of people that you could be partners with, and you find out that actually is not necessarily true.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really quite a realization. And a year or so later, I met this guy on a dating app. I was meeting them all through dating apps, so it wasn't like dating apps was the issue. Actually, I think dating apps today is a problem, but back then, this was like 11 years ago, it wasn't the same environment that
Yeah.
it is today. It has really
Agreed.
changed.
Yeah.
So I met this guy, and he ticked all the boxes, although I didn't know what to look for in a profile. Because here's the thing that people may not really realize is that in psychology, you learn about disorders. And until recently, graduate programs didn't focus a lot on personality disorders. My program did. I actually had
Oh,
a pretty significant training in personality disorders. I recognized this guy was narcissistic,
okay.
but what we didn't focus on was the interpersonal harm that comes with these relations. There's no
Interesting.
mention of that at all. There's, I think, yeah, I know, if you talk to Sandra Brown, she's like, well, it's not new. It's been around a while. But yet when you think about the field of psychology, it's not an old study.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, narcissism was added to the DSM in 1980.
Mm.
So if you
I don't
start to
think
think
anyone knows that. Yeah.
yeah. So if you start to think about that in perspective, we're only talking about 50 years.
Yeah.
So that's not a lot of time for it to permeate the literature about interpersonal harm.
Right, because it's one thing to study that personality, but then to look at it from the lens, right, of how it's affecting other people that they're in
Yeah,
relationships with and how it translates into abuse. That's a whole nother
exactly.
animal, right?
It is because psychology is about the study of the mind. So when we study a personality disorder, we study study about that person's unique characteristics. We don't study about what happens in the greater environment around that individual. We'll note, well, they have trouble in love, and that's not, I mean, I knew that, and they have trouble with relationships, but we never translate to what does that actually mean? What would
Right.
it be like to be on this person's work team or to be this person's child or partner? We don't, there's no focus. When I went through
Right.
school, there was absolutely no focus on that at all.
And thank you for saying that because I've had so many conversations with people who are looking for the right therapist. And there's almost
Hmm.
like an underlying anger, like, why don't therapists get this? And it's good to hear the history. It's like not necessarily their fault, but it's also really important that people do their due diligence and look for somebody who
Yeah,
understands it.
you have to know the key words. You have to know what words to begin to go out and search for someone. You need someone who's trauma informed, specifically betrayal trauma is one of the key words you want to, and ask, do they understand narcissistic abuse? Just ask. Not all clinicians like that terminology. You may get some, if you get pushback, then that to me tells you this is an individual who's not well trained and
Thank you
has
for that
some,
advice.
yeah.
A
So,
100%. That great. Didn't even mean to go on that tangent, but that was
yeah,
gold. That was gold.
yeah.
So thank you.
You're welcome. So I got into the relationship with him and I didn't know what love bombing was, never heard of it. I didn't know what a trauma bond was, never heard of it. Again, here I'm a clinical psychologist with more than 25 years of clinical
Yeah.
practice, and these are terminologies that I had no idea. And I knew that the dating period felt like incredible.
Hmm.
And I'd never, because my late husband didn't love bomb me. So this felt like, wow, this is really amazing. And
Right.
it made me believe in the idea of soulmates. Please be aware. If you ever feel that way, run, because that's a
Isn't
big
it the
warning.
truth? And it's such a mind-blowing concept because what do you mean don't run from somebody who feels like my soulmate? And yet those of us who know.
Yeah,
That is
yeah, yeah.
absolutely
You
true.
know, exactly. So we dated for a year, and already the cognitive dissonance was occurring rapidly in the beginning. Within a couple months, I was having this incredible conflictual experience about who is he? What's he really doing? Do I know him? And yet I also I couldn't stand being away from him. So I had this t wild tug and this pull and push feeling with this person. And yeah, I felt like, in fact, they describe in the book that in the early part of the dating, I said being with him was like the world came alive with color, and then to not be with him, it felt like it fell into this dark, drab, gray world again. So I was just head over heels in love with this person. And I was pushing for us to get married as fast as possible because I felt like, well, we're two adults, we know what we want. We both have been in relationships before. Why would we not just do this?
Yeah.
Not realizing that again, I was pushing myself towards my own demise. So yeah, and so I got
Oh,
into the relationship and found out on the honeymoon it felt like a trap set. It felt like like the bear trap closed on me on the honeymoon.
uh-huh.
And literally, it went like from night to day or day to night. And I realized by the end of the honeymoon that I met and married a stranger. I didn't know who he was at all.
Yeah.
And then it started the
Absolutely.
next 2 years of trying to save us, trying to save me, and trying to figure out what in the world was happening. So I
Yeah.
got out and then I wrote "Love You More" partly for me. Yeah, actually, it was mostly for me. It was I wanted to make sense of what happened, and then I felt so much shame that my
Yeah.
way of trying to like distill the shame was to say, unpack it and make it make sense. But
Hmm.
I also then realized, well, if I'm feeling ashamed, everybody else who's experiencing it, I feel tremendous shame because if I'm a psychologist and I don't know better, then how can I expect anybody else to? So I really wanted just to take shame away from everybody,
Yep.
which is why it's so graphic and raw, is because I really wanted you to know the real story of what happened.
Yeah. And so honestly, it will be in my show notes, but everybody go and get this book. I've started reading it and it's incredible. And it's just validating. And yes, we need to talk about, like you said, the
Yeah.
raw parts of this and take away the shame. I know when I left my marriage, I was extremely embarrassed to
Hmm.
admit that I had zero eyes on any of my finances. I mean, zero, 16 and a half years. I didn't know one thing. I didn't have access to one bank account. My name was not on anything anywhere. And people would say, how'd you allow that to happen? And I was just so embarrassed to
Yeah.
admit to my own attorneys, okay, hand over all your financials. I don't have any. Well, just write down what you know. I don't know anything. But just you must have account or know what bank. Nothing. I mean, talk about embarrassed. So anyway, thank you. You guys
I
read this book.
totally get that. I mean, I let him have that, and the money was all mine. He was on the bank accounts with me, and I let him have a card and have full access, and he was pulling it here and there, everywhere for whatever, I never required receipts. Yeah, it was. So
Yeah,
I look back and I don't know how much he actually took for illegitimate reasons that were definitely very awful reasons. I don't know. Probably
sure.
thousands of dollars were disappeared, and I had no clue. I know at the end when I was cleaning out the house to get ready to leave, I took two suitcases from our home. That's all I walked away with. But I went to his little cash box and there was cash sitting in there, and I thought, I better tell him I took it because I knew all the money, the company, everything was mine. So it
Right.
wasn't like I was taking money.
You were taking
I
your
took
money.
exactly. And I said, hey, I took that. And he acted like, oh yeah, well that way. I mean, his excuse, I thought, yeah, no, he took this
Hmm.
in a way he shouldn't have. Because
Hmm.
the way he's acting, I can tell
You can
he had
tell
embezzled
he is
in
even
some way.
feeling a twinge about like, oh shit, I'm caught. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay, so you mentioned the cognitive dissonance, and so I think it's we can never hear enough explanations, or and especially from an expert, on the many things that we experience in these abusive relationships. Please explain from your standpoint what is cognitive dissonance, and as
Yes.
much as you want to go into it, and as
Sure.
deep.
So I want to first give you the college explanation because if you go to
Love
college
it.
and get a degree in sociology, this is what they're going to tell you. But there's a whole nother layer to it so this is the typical example. You're on a diet. You're on a diet. You're at the office and donuts get brought in. And it's not just any donuts, it's the donuts from your favorite place. And there's your favorite donut in that box. And you think to yourself, can I really afford to eat this today? Because I know what I should be eating. And there is not the calorie allotment for that donut. That tension you feel in that moment when you're debating what to do around this decision is cognitive dissonance.
Mm,
It's the push pull feeling. It's the I want it, I know I shouldn't want it, and it creates tension inside you, it creates
yeah,
stress inside of you. So you make the decision. That's how you get out of it. You make a decision, and if you make a bad decision, you justify it and explain it to yourself to make it make sense so that you can sit with that so it doesn't feel bad. And if you do the decision you think is the right decision, I'm not saying there is a right decision, but if you
right.
think there's a right decision and you do that, then you're going to walk away and you feel really relieved because you solved the problem. So that's in a nutshell what cognitive dissonance. What happens in these relationships is that we meet people who are not actually who they are. The love bombing is actually a form of manipulation. It's a setup to pull you into a relationship so that you're not meeting an actual person. You're meeting a version of who they think you want to meet because they want you to get into this relationship. That's what we're now calling grooming. It's predatory grooming.
Right.
So as a result of that, and then they're also using, by the way, tactics that are very powerful tactics that psychologists are trained to use to build rapport rapidly and in session. For example, and I'd never realized this, that I was taught to groom people, but yes, I was. When you sit down with a new person as a new psychologist, why would you share your most vulnerable things with this person who's a stranger? You don't
Hmm.
know them. So they have to do, obviously, the position of power that they have is one huge advantage because you assume they're an expert and you assume they're trustworthy. You're hoping for that. By the way, I would
Right.
say, please be careful. Psychologists and psychiatrists have a fair number of predators among them. So be really
Hmm.
careful when you're assessing who you're sitting with. But they also are doing some things to make, if they're good at what they do and they're good at grooming, what they'll do is they'll make some kind of direct contact with you, like they may touch your arm, shake your hand. They're going to touch you in some way that makes you feel like, oh, there's a familiarity here. I feel like I have this connection with this person. They're going to make fantastic eye contact with you, which somebody's now proposing that actually kind of overloads the brain with
Hmm.
it's a lot of eye contact that sort of so that's kind of an interesting idea. But it also is
Interesting.
building trust because they feel open and unguarded with you and very interested in you.
Hmm.
The other thing they're going to do is they're going to mirror your body language. So if you cross your legs, they're going to naturally cross theirs. They're doing kind of like literally, if
Wow.
you're looking at a mirror, they're going to do what seems like the reverse. So you're seeing yourself imitated. I do this unconsciously. I'm just very good at that. So I will
Sure.
start mirroring the person's body language or body positioning as a way to sort of, again, create the sense of symmetry, the sense of you're with somebody who's like you.
Yeah.
That's what it's so you
Wow.
start to feel very safe because you're getting all the cues. This person's a lot like you, that they also like you, which makes you feel good. And they've developed a sense of warmth because they've connected with you. And as a result, it gives you a sense that they're trustworthy when they actually haven't proven that they're trustworthy because
That's the
nothing's
key
happened.
sentence.
Yeah,
Yes, I
nothing's
love that
happened.
sentence.
I
Yep.
know.
Yep.
So I get into this relationship with this guy, and he's doing all of those things with me. And I And the other thing that happens in love bombing is they create a sense of this shared history with you. It's all fake, but you don't realize it. But here's how it works. And I heard this is from Dr. Kristen Milstead, who I think wrote the best book on cognitive dissonance. Actually,
Oh,
it's called
good.
"Why Can't I Just Leave?" I highly recommend it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, "Why Can't I Just Leave" by Dr. Kristen Milstead. I got to actually meet her and interview her, and I thought this definition was just stellar.
Okay.
What they do is they hear your past and then they place themselves in that past with you, even if it's not actually true. So one I like to pretend is I actually have been to Chicago. I had a friend who went to University of Chicago. I've been on the campus. Let's pretend I went there. And I said, yeah, I went to school at University of Chicago. And like, oh, yeah, me too. Now they have crossed the green, or maybe they even stepped into Chicago. Who knows? But they'll say that. And then suddenly you'll see them on that campus, even though they may have never been there. It creates a sense of them being with you in that past, even though they haven't. So they create this sense of we have a similar past. We know the same places. We've been to the same place. We've done the same things. They create this shared past with you. Then they'll create this sense of this perfect present moment by saying, I've never felt like this before. I've never had anybody understand me like this.
Yes.
And then you feel like you suddenly have created this unique world that of just the two of you are populating it that feels magical. So now you have a shared past, you have a magical presence, and then they'll future fake by saying, have you ever imagined going and doing such and such and such and such? I had somebody do it to me. I said, one of my wished for dream dates would be to go stargazing. He said, we need to do that. We need to go blah, blah, blah. Wouldn't that be amazing? And suddenly you picture yourself in the future with this person looking at the stars.
Oh my gosh. So now you've got a past, present, future, a history,
yes,
emotional
you now
bond.
have a history with this individual, which makes you feel like you know them and you don't know them. And it was created on barrage. It was an illusion, but it really makes it. So you have a sense that you've met this incredible individual, but you don't realize all of it is based on you. You've met yourself. That's all that you've met. You've met yourself. They're very good at they're like camouflaging. They're very good at that. But you also sense there is something that's not quite right or not quite fully there. And in the beginning, you haven't seen it yet, but you just can feel it. I felt it. 2 months into this relationship, I'm hiring a private investigator to research him because he's been married multiple times. And my question for the researcher, how and why I asked this, I cannot tell you. I wanted to know if he was actually really divorced. That was my question. Oh, now, why would I don't know how far you in the book, but you'll find out he's not.
Okay.
A few days before we're to get married, I find out he's still married.
Oh, I don't know this yet. Okay.
Yeah, you haven't got that far. Literally, we have the date. We're going to go to the court. We've got our witnesses lined up. And he then drops the bomb a few days before, like, oh, I forgot I'm still married. That's what he says to me.
I forgot.
I'm still married. Yep, I forgot I'm still married. It was such a bad relationship that I just left it and put it out of my mind.
Is
And
we need a whole
I'm
show
thinking, you know
just on
what?
this.
If you file your tax reports, you have to
Right.
declare your marital status. So what in the world do you put?
Right.
I'm actually in my head thinking this does not add up. You have to answer this question constantly. So what are you saying when you do that?
And for those of us that are divorced, the process. I don't care how amicable it is. The nightmare process you have to go through to get divorced.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know
I'm
if I
just
had a baby. I don't
baffled.
know if I.
By the way, I've not been divorced, so I didn't know that part. But I was just like, this just doesn't make. So within a few months in, I don't have any of this information. I literally don't know anything except that the relationship was giving me enough like weird feelings that I just didn't quite feel like things were. And I can't tell you what it was, but that's the beginning of the cognitive dissonance. I just felt like, So I actually do this check, and the check came back like, well, there's some weird stuff on him, but he is living alone. That's what the guy said. I could tell you he's living alone. His utility bills indicate there's nobody else there at the house.
Okay.
So I will move forward, assuming that he was. But so that's what it's this dis-ease that you feel, that you feel like you can't quite put your finger on it. But the problem is with these relationships is, like I said, there's usually a moment where the door shuts. Usually you're in so deep that maybe you've planned something like your big trip, or you've moved, or you bought a house, or you have a baby coming, or you get married, or something. It makes it
hard to extract yourself. It makes it really hard to pull out of this next plan you have, or this.
Exactly. For me, it was the visa was finished. We were moving to a new country. We had a place that we were moving to. The house has been sold. The car has been sold. We're literally in mid-transition. We go on this vacation and he shuts the door. And I suddenly see this other version of him that I'd never seen before. And by the end of the week, I find out that not only did I see a version of him I've never seen before, but he's cheating. And there's somebody gets a hold of me and proves it to me in that communication that she's been with him multiple times. She knows his car. She recognizes my belongings. The dates line up, and I realize that I have this awful sensation that I don't know him at all. That's stage one, by the way. So cognitive dissonance in a narcissistic relationship is all around the deception of that person, that you don't know who they really are. And the reason they do this is to keep you off balance so that you're more controllable. It keeps you very much, and it keeps you in this state of confusion, but it also keeps you in this belief that the first person that you met, you can get back to. So it does more than just to keep you confused. It actually makes you work hard to heal the relationship, to then find that Mr. or the Dr. Jekyll that you met. You think that that person really actually exists. No, they don't. That Dr. Jekyll is the manipulation.
Yeah,
He's
and
the facade.
That's why the love bombing is so important, because those extreme, happy, bonded feelings you feel, you're constantly trying to get back to those. So that step is so critical for them to get you to feel that way in the beginning. And then I have another question that I had sort of read and written, repeated somewhere, about when you get that relief of making those decisions, like you described with the donut, when you can't figure out that push-pull. It's like a relief to put it back on yourself. If I try harder, it's like your brain finds a solution, and for a moment you get relief. And so then you just try harder because there's no making sense of it. Am I articulating that right? Or can you expand on that?
No, that's interesting. I hadn't put it that way, but because I experienced it. In fact, as Sandra Brown said, it's the most agonizing experience you can have in these relationships. And you think, no, it's the rejection of the person should be, no, I agree with her. To me, the inability to know the truth was the most agonizing part of it. Yes, the abuse was awful. But yet on the other hand, it's an entirely surprising because they're an abusive person. But the inability to know what is real so that you can make a decision on it. Because we need to make a decision, right? Do you stay or do you leave? And they keep that question so open that I literally would revisit it hundreds of times a day. And I'm not exaggerating, guys. I would be like, oh, he's doing better. We're doing better. We're doing better. Oh, that's bad. Oh, maybe should I start canceling stuff? Should I start talking to an attorney? Literally, I'd be back and forth every day, all day long, trying to make the decision. So and every time I try to make a decision and I think I'd have an answer, I'd feel relief, only that every few seconds later, he'd throw something new in there that would confuse the answer and then make me rethink that maybe I got it wrong.
Yes. And I know when I look back, I see the pattern. Like that's when the future faking would come in. He had his specific tools he'd go to, and it was like, oh, this new deal is about to come through. We're going to have like more money than we know what to do with. Then I won't be so stressed. And then I think, okay. So I'm just going to hold on.
Or I would think, because they bring a lot of chaos into your life, a lot of confusion and chaos. They just make messes. They're just chaotic people, and they don't make good decisions. And they bite off way more than they can chew because they're kind of like believe they can do anything. And so you end up thinking, well, if we just get through this transition, it'll be all right. And then things will get quiet. I kept looking for my quiet life to come back to me, not realizing this person was never going to be quiet. They want the chaos.
Yes.
They live in that. They want the drama, partly just because they're people who are impulsive and novelty seeking. So that's part of just the hardwiring of their personality. But also that chaos serves a purpose in keeping you invested. And it also keeps you believing the idea that you can get to a plateau when there really is no such thing. So there's a lot about these relationships. They build, we call it false hope. And I think that's a perfect word. They build a lot of false hope into this. Well, if we could just get over this hump, then things will get better. Or if we can just get this kind of therapy, then we'll get better. Or if we can just work out this communication issue between the two of us, then we'll get better. No, there is no getting better. There will just be something new. And you have to, you can hear me, maybe hear you say that, but until somebody experiences nope, there's another crisis. Oh, now we're in another crisis. Until you start to see, but notice there's a pattern from crisis to crisis to crisis.
It is hard to hear and to accept, but there is no getting better, you guys. It doesn't get better. And I think also the problem with accepting that realization is it means now you have to do something about it. And like you said, extracting yourself from that, because there's always the next big thing that they're promising. is so hard to do. And so, and hence, I can throw in a lot of statistics, but why it takes women or people so long to leave a relationship, or so many
Yes.
tries, or so many, hope is the hook.
Hope is the hook. Hope is the hook. But let's 3 stages. Let's walk through all 3 of them because each
Okay. Yes,
stage gets
please.
incrementally
Oh, I
worse
love
and
this.
you
Yes.
get more and more trapped. So
We
the
need to
first
hear
stage is
this.
you think, I don't know who this person is. And they just feel like a stranger and you wonder, what in the world have I done? And then you start to really work hard at, like you said, because the love bombing is set a baseline. It's a false baseline, but you think it's real. So you start to work really hard to like get back there and find that person again. You think, oh, maybe they're stressed at work. That's one of the things I assumed. Or they think, oh, when I found out he was cheating, maybe he's a sex addict and just needs lots of treatment. You start to do all this scrambling around and maybe they're financially in trouble or whatever it is. You just do a lot of like trying to rescue them. They want that, by the way, because it keeps you invested and keeps you connected to them and keeps you under their control. So again, they're building the thoughts on purpose because they're not ready to have you let you go yet. So that's the thing. Once they're ready to let you go, you're gone. I mean, they will then
Oh,
walk away for a second, discard you immediately. But
oh yeah.
until that happens, then they will keep you on the hook and fighting. So the next stage is you start to put all this effort into the relationship and you start to realize that it's not working. And the question then becomes, is this relationship salvageable? You start to see that there's moments where you think, oh, it is. And then there's another disastrous thing that you find, another betrayal, and no, it's not. And then you work harder again and you go, oh, no, we're going to be all right. But you really battle over, is this relationship savable? Is there something you can do to really rescue it? Then the third, after a while from that, and you realize, no, that's the new pattern to keep you locked in is now you realize that there's a part of them that they're keeping out of the relationship that you're not going to know, that you're not going to fully know, that there's some part of them that doesn't make sense. That's the first question. The second question, you realize the relationship is unstable, it never gets stable. And then you start to think this is the worst part you fall into. And this is usually when the trauma bond is moved to the very low bottom, very deep stage. You start to say, what's wrong with me? Why can't I leave? There must be something wrong with me. I know I don't know this person. I know this relationship is tumultuous. We never can get on good footing, but I cannot seem to extract myself. And there you start to fall into a lot of despair. Maybe you start to feel incredibly helpless, definitely hopeless. I know when I got there, I didn't really care if I lived. It didn't matter to me. I just felt utterly. I remember praying when I got to this, and I'll probably get a little teary saying this. I said to God, I can't extract myself. I cannot. I don't know how to do it. This is impossible. I'm at the end of myself. I remember getting there and saying, I'm at the end of myself. And if you can't rescue me, I can't either. So it's a very, very dark place that you get to.
Right.
And I meet people there all the time. They end up thinking they feel utterly broken as a person, wondering, I'm a person. I used to own real estate. I was a landlord. I had several real estate properties. I would decide that I was ready to add a property, call my real estate agent. She would, put together maybe 5 or 7 showings. We walked through, and by the end of the 7th, I would buy one. I was decisive. I knew exactly the numbers. I knew which one would make me money and which ones wouldn't. I knew about how much it would cost to repair the place. I could figure all that out super fast and on my feet, and I'd walk away with a decision. And like, where is she? I don't recognize this person. I'm
so
a
the
shell
person
of
you
this
just
person.
described that can walk through others' properties is pre this guy. Okay.
Yes.
Got it. Yep. And you're like,
And by the
where
end of
is
this,
she?
it's
How do
like,
I get back to her? Yeah.
I can't even make a decision about this relationship.
Yeah. And do you feel like you can never get back to her, to the
Oh,
old version
no,
of you?
I'm there again. Yes, no, I'm there again. But here's the other terrible part about cognitive dissonance. It hits people differently. So not everybody is equally vulnerable to it. So there's they've found, this is again Sandra Brown's work, they've found that there's certain characteristics that make you a very perfect target for these individuals.
Okay.
And if you have these characteristics, you're highly susceptible to cognitive dissonance. That is, you're very agreeable, meaning you're a team player, you're cooperative, you believe in working together with people to solve big problems. You just like people and you're willing to be open. And when there's something wrong, you consider your part to what your contribution is to the problem. So you work to solve problems and you believe they're solvable. And you also believe that people are changeable because you're changeable.
Yeah.
and you're very motivated. So all of those things kind of go together with agreeableness. People like to say, "Oh, that means you're codependent." No, it means you're a good team player. It's not
Yeah.
codependency. It's a
No.
good team player. The vulnerable trait is conscientiousness, and that is a fancy way of saying you have moral integrity. You're a person who kind of knows what you believe. You have ethics that you live by. You believe that rules do help make things seem a little more organized and give structure to things, and that you probably believe that other people do that as well, that you
Right.
assume that other people are governed by that. Now, these two traits, then, what they do is make you susceptible to being owning this relationship as the problem, and that this person can be fixed, that you believe in trying to help people, that people are redeemable. You believe in that. It also then makes you own that when things are going wrong, that you must be a part of the equation and you take responsibility for that. And that for you to not stick things out and see it through and really solve stuff feels like a problem with your moral integrity. You don't like to do that. It feels like you're giving up, or that you don't believe in people, and that would feel like a violation to your sense of self.
Yeah.
They're looking for that. But the other problem is cognitive dissonance hits you harder.
Mm.
It's going to be more disruptive and destroying to you. And this is the other really terrible piece about this, is that cognitive dissonance actually does neurological damage.
Yes.
So if you're in it for long periods of time, it's changing your brain structure. Actually, the way that your brain looks under scans, it is
Yes.
causing the amygdala, which is your fight or flight center, the threat detection center, to swell because it feels like there's under constant threat. So it's working hard and grows because of that. And then the part of you that has to do with your memory and sense of, your history and all of that shrinks. That's your hippocampus is shrinking, which causes executive functioning problems, which means you're struggling to make decisions. I found myself struggling to find words. I had a real problem with even speaking and stringing words together. Things that keep you sort of organized.
You can't even have a conversation where you have a solid argument because you can't even remember your argument. You
Yes,
can't.
they're running circles around you,
Yes.
but you can't hold. So that part of it is they're very good at that. They're using semantic abuse as well as circular arguments.
Oh, semantic abuse. I love
Yeah.
that. Yes, that
Yeah.
resonates so
Yeah.
much
So
with
they're
me.
moving the goalposts, making words mean different things, changing what you originally agreed upon, in mid-sentence. So yeah, it's horrible. But so that's happening. But in addition to that, you're already cognitively struggling.
Yeah.
You're in massive So imagine, for example, that you told a computer to solve an impossible puzzle. So it's throwing more and more resources trying to solve that puzzle. And then meanwhile, you ask it to do a whole lot of other tasks.
Yeah.
It's not going to do well. If it's extending its resources to max, you've used all the RAM up.
Yep.
That's what's happening to us psychologically with cognitive dissonance. It's using up all our resources. And as a result, we're then overextended and we're starting to do really funny things because we can't remember.
Yeah.
We can't schedule a day. All sorts of stuff starts to happen.
That's not like us, like you said, and you lose yourself. And thank you for setting me up to plug my book. You see, there's a brain on it because I'm obsessed with the science behind it and people understanding that it's not their fault. Like this is there are actual biological changes in shape, like you said, in your brain and whatnot. But so that's so important to understand. And then my next question to you is, you got back there. How do people get back? And especially now, if people realize that they're super susceptible because they're like, oh, I am really agreeable. Oh, I do really look at problems and think, maybe I played a part in this. Oh, how do you get back to the Kerry that could look at 7 properties and make a decision?
Yeah. So first of all, if you're wondering if you have that personality style, is a really easy, cheap, free way to find out. Go to open source. It's an open source test called the Big 5 Personality Test. It's out there. It's free. Anybody can take it, and it will tell you your personality profile. And if you pop up on high on agreeable and high on conscientiousness, then be careful. You're a predator's ideal candidate. They're looking for you. They're not going to hit everybody, but they're going to be looking for you because you're the type that makes them. They know that you're more manipulable. Unfortunately, I hate to tell you that.
Yeah.
Makes you somebody I want to hire, a company, but it also,
Well, I was just going to say, makes you a great employee, but no, you're right. But it's okay. I mean, it may sound scary, but we need to know this, right? If we're going to protect ourselves. So
yes, yeah. And Sandra Brown calls it super traits. They are super traits. They're delightful things that make you a wonderful person.
Yep.
Somebody that I want to move in as my neighbor.
Yeah.
But predators are also on the hunt for you. But so the healing process, this is one of the reasons why we say go no contact.
Yeah.
People often say, Well, it's the way for us to reduce their contact and access. Yes, that's true. Or they'll say, we'll do it and hope that it hurts them. Well, that's not going to work. You're not going to get any revenge out
No,
of that. They don't
agreed.
care.
They
Frankly,
don't
they really
care.
don't care.
Mm-mm.
The reason I advise that you do that is you have to stop the confusion. You have to, because if back to the idea of this computer working on an impossible problem that is using up all its resources, if you are still in contact, you're then using up a lot of resources because you will not be able to resist seeing this as a puzzle that needs to be solved. Your brain is a meaning-making machine.
Yeah.
It just will gravitate. I mean, if I draw a picture of a partially drawn square, it's not closed, your mind will say, that's a square. You just didn't finish it. No, it's not. It's open. I didn't finish it. Technically,
It's three lines. There
yeah,
is
exactly.
no, yeah.
It's not
turn on
sealed.
side and make a U,
You're
it could be
going
a
to
C.
jump forward and tell me it's a square. It's doing that all the time. You will not stop your brain from trying to solve problems. So that's why also we ruminate. We're ruminating because the mind says, oh, this is solvable. No, it's not solvable, but it doesn't know the difference. So no contact is the literal physical thing that you can do to break off and give yourself space to start to heal. Now, why don't we want to do that? Well, partly because we're still caught in that relationship. If we're not caught physically in it, we're still caught psychologically in it. We still feel like there's something about it that's sort of like an itch we have to scratch. We just really want to make it make sense. You have to discipline yourself and say, no, I'm not allowing myself to think about that. So how do you do that? Because the minute you say, don't think about it, you're thinking about it.
Right.
Yeah. So I urge people to use the thought distraction process where they literally, whenever they catch themselves, and now you may catch yourself like, oh, I've been doing this for 5, 10, maybe 30, 50 minutes. That's okay. But wherever you catch yourself, stop and distract and do something else. Well, distract with what? Well, it has to be something that takes both attention and concentration. So test it. A good way to know if something works is there's no thought leakage around whatever it is that you're doing.
Without leakage,
You catch yourself doing it. You think, oh, I'm doing it. I need to stop. And then you literally move to that new activity, whatever it is. By the way, math is always a good way to keep yourself busy because it takes both attention and concentration. So start multiplying or subtracting or doing something that's a little difficult. Don't do easy, do a little difficult, but do something you can do in your head. Yeah, you could use pen and paper if you want to, but just, but every time you catch, do it. But so the no contact is your literal space, but then you also have to do no contact in your head, which is to create the psychological space. So that's number one. The reason why we're suggesting that you do that is you need to lower the stress level in your body, the threat level in your mind and your body. And the way to do that is to break free from this relationship. You need complete peace from this relationship. Now, it's also, there's an addictive piece to these relationships. They get you onto this cycle of dopamine and cortisol. This like, oh, we're really great. This feels wonderful. We're back on good footing. Oh, now we're back into the pits and I'm scared. And what are they up to that I don't know? That's the highs and lows that you're experiencing. So when you get out of it, you literally feel like the worst, like the biggest, hugest, most important Christmas you've ever had. And it's now the day after. It feels like I don't know what to do with myself. I'm lost. I feel drifty. We don't like, that's a dopamine withdrawal. You don't like it. It feels miserable. And the way I say to get through that is schedule yourself.
Yes.
Literally schedule your day from, if you need to, every 5 minutes.
Yes.
I'm going to go do this, and then I'm going to go eat this, and then I'm going to see this person, then I'm going to do this work. I mean, you need to fill it up so that you don't have downtime, because the minute you do, you're going to get back into that awful bad feeling of dopamine withdrawal.
Yes. And I was just going to say too, another little addition to that is I will tell people a similar advice, like to schedule, but to also go back and add things in that you did, maybe to give yourself credit, like a little reward, right? Like, oh, and then I went through all the mail that was sitting on my desk, or and you didn't even think twice about it. It was just sitting there and you went through it, but go back and give yourself credit for lots of things.
I love that. Yes. Yeah. Because then that gives you a little kudos. It gives you a little dopamine hit. I did something.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, exactly.
Let's replace it with something positive.
Yeah. So those are the first things, is you have to allow yourself, your body, or think of it this way. If your body's been running as if it's in a 3-alarm fire for a long time, it needs to cool off and cool down. You don't know it because you got acclimated to it. So if I just threw you into where you were at the worst moment and you were peaceful, you're like, oh my goodness, this is awful. But because it was slowly hyped up, you didn't realize that it was getting worse and worse. You have to change that stress level and move it back to quiet. That's the first really big step, is your body has to reset, and it won't reset if you're still in any kind of threat. Which
Right.
here's the other problem we often find. And so it's not just enough to leave these relationships. You need to assess all your other relationships because often we get out of these and we find out we have other unhealthy relationships. It's not just this one.
This is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had
And
to clean house. I had to like get rid of
friendships.
most of them.
Yes,
Yeah.
I was realizing I had attracted some similar personalities in my friendships, and I had
Yes.
never looked at it that way
I
before.
know, I didn't either. And so I literally had to clean house and start over because you need a completely quiet environment. You're not
Yeah.
going to want it, you're not going to like it, but
No,
you
you're
need to
not.
really, really be serious about this. So that's
Yeah.
step one. The step two is then start to get support and
Mm.
understand what happened. Now, we often spend a lot of time trying to understand them. Why? I mean, I wrote the book. Well, I was doing the same. I talked about him nonstop for 3 years. That's how long it took me to write that book. I get that. It's not going to lead to healing. It may
Mm.
make sense about what happened and how it happened. And
Sure.
that maybe give you some answers. Because here's the other problem. We think there's going to be closure. There's no closure.
Hmm.
This person's
No.
never going to give you closure.
Mm-mm.
So the
No.
closure is the meaning you make of it yourself. That's what the closure you give to yourself.
Yeah.
So that may be the first step, but you can't stay there. So if you see yourself like years out and you're still trying to understand why did they do that, or how come they, if you're like having to deal with custody and you're still trying to understand every move they make, then that to me says you've gotten stuck at that stage. You
Yeah.
need to move to the next stage and let it go because you're trying to get into their head. They're never going to allow you in their head.
Right.
And thank God you don't because you're not a predator. So it just isn't going to make sense to
No,
you.
it's just going to be extremely exhausting for you. Because I think I will tell people when they offer, like, should I do this? Because this is something he would do to me in the divorce. And I would say, you know what? Let's not play that game. It's going to be exhausting. They actually get fuel from it, and it's
Yes.
going to take you down. And I actually tried a couple times to pull some fast ones on him. It's like he deserved it in my divorce. And both times I always say like the universe slammed me because it was like, you don't act like this, Jackie. It's not your nature. It's not who you are. It didn't work out because this is not a path you should go down. And I'm
Yeah.
glad it happened. I was bummed I didn't get to him the way I
Yeah.
wanted. But yeah, so agree with that,
I
Carrie.
agree. Yeah. Because what we don't understand, if you're a healthy, functioning, emotionally functioning person, no, for you, the best thing is good attention, no attention, and bad attention.
Hmm.
That's the order that you prefer them in. You don't like bad attention. It makes you
Yeah.
feel really bad.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is not the order that they run in. They run in great attention, bad attention, and no attention.
Oh, I love that.
They
Yeah.
can't tolerate no attention. They thrive on bad attention is almost for some of them even better than good attention.
Agreed.
They really thrive on it. So for you to give them bad attention, you're just serving up pie to them. Don't do that.
I love that explanation. Thank you. And I'm going to steal that because sometimes I'm really struggling to articulate like why not responding is so important or,
Yes.
if you have to, the co-help, co-parenting, blah, blah, blah. But like
Yes.
how we minimize it. We do a thumbs up and even instead of a yes or like whatever. But anyway, I
Yes.
love explaining like how they cannot tolerate no attention. So that's what we're trying to.
You need to starve them out the way you starve them out. But which is hard because it's back to you want the closure. So you feel like you're starving yourself out. Well, that's like you have to give the closure is the meaning you make of it yourself. You really have to like change that to think about that. So
Yeah.
to me, the middle stage is really trying to make sense of it, of yourself. I think the other big piece that to me that's important is the second part is dealing with the shame. I know for me that was like, or the guilt. I think it's people either will be really guilty, like I have people that I've met like they need to be saved and I'm not saving them. That makes me feel like a failure as a person. Or they say they just can't function and I'm leaving them that way. How can I tolerate myself for doing that? So some people feel a lot of guilt. Others of us, like myself, feel a lot of shame. Like, how could I have let that happen? Wasn't I brighter than that? Why would I need anybody like that? What does that say about me?
That's
So
where I was.
you'll have to deal with both of those and make it make sense to yourself and really come to terms with how that happened. For me, it was I had to get to the place where I was played. That there are predators in the world that are that good. You're never going to perfectly spot them, and I wasn't in touch with myself enough. And I also recognized that I really want to be loved and
Yeah.
chosen, and that's not wrong to want that. That kind of
Right.
because in order to be in a relationship, you have to take that risk. If you
Right.
don't take that risk, you won't have a real relationship. So
Yeah.
I had to like make all that make sense and forgive myself for my vulnerabilities.
And I did fast forward in your book some, and I stumbled on the story that you alluded to earlier, where the woman called you and said, or left a message, whatever it was, and said, explained exactly how he came after her and was dating her as you guys just got married, I think. But anyway, and and it's just really showing what a predator he is. I mean, he picked another woman who had just come out of a divorce. Her husband passed away, but he's looking for a certain type of woman, right, to prey on.
Yes.
And I think part of that's important too, because so many women will say, I'm sure you get the same thing, that, well, is he different in this next relationship I'm watching him in? Is she getting the good version of him? And I'm always
No,
like,
there is
no,
no
they aren't.
good.
They are not. They are
No,
not.
if anything, they get a more practiced version.
Yeah, they got better
They
at it.
they got a worse version than you met because they're practicing and getting better and better at this. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because one woman the other day said, but it's already to the stage where I think he's going to be with her longer than me. And I'm like, yeah, because he's better at it. Like you said, he's better at manipulating. He's better at keeping her around longer. He's better at looking for the cues when she looks like she's ready to bolt, and like pulling her back. So that's all that's happening.
Yeah, I bet they won't make it a whole lot longer after. I've noticed, and I'm kind of curious, this is just me speculating,
Sure. I
that
love it. Let's hear
they
it.
have there's an average length to their relationships. And if you could know what that is, you're going to then know what the average length of your relationship's going to be.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my
Like mine had
experience
was a
too.
2 year mark.
Okay.
He already lost the relationship at 2 years. We made it 2 years.
Mine was much longer, unfortunately.
Oh, that's sad.
But it's
Yeah, it's
also very
painful.
validating too, because it's like anyway, when I look at, he had a first wife as well, and then now the next one he's on. Anyway, but yes, I agree with that assessment. I
Yeah.
think you
So
could probably
yeah,
get
so I
the
think
average.
second stage is really dealing with yourself, really bringing a lot of healing in, making the big questions about because here's the thing about these relationships. You didn't just get betrayed by the individual, you betrayed yourself and you sense that.
Yeah.
And it breaks your trust in yourself because they've they've eroded your belief that you're a person who's capable of making good decisions. I didn't believe that after I got out of that relationship, that I could. I didn't trust myself. I trusted myself before, but then I saw what a disastrous decision I made there, and it really damaged my sense of in myself. So I think you have to like do some lot of settling in around that. And I think the third stage is after you do that kind of work, and these, by the way, there is no big set periods, and they
Right.
bleed into each other, and it's messy. Please don't expect that this is a night niece. Like one of the things I don't like about the grief stages of grief is because it feels like it's like levels. No, they're not levels. They're just imagine a tangled ball of yarn and they're all mixed in together. That's what
Yes.
these are like. This
And
is
that
going to
yarn that's like ombre that goes from yellow to red to blue to green to back. Yeah. So it's like,
and it's
not
all a
only is it
mess. It's
yarn,
all around you. Exactly. That's what
I'm
this
at
is like
yellow.
too.
No, I'm in green. I'm blue. Oh, I'm back on
Yeah.
yellow again. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right.
But then
Absolutely.
I think the last stage is really then beginning to work at understanding. I don't like the words boundaries because we've way overly simplified it.
I'm actually going to
Boundaries in
ask you a
these
question about
relationships
that. Okay.
extraordinarily complex.
Yes.
But I do think you need to know where you feel responsible for other people. What is really your obligation in relationships?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it's just to hone in on that, and when do you get manipulated? When do you like push back your? There's a grounding practice we've been doing I have a membership called Toxic Free Relationship Club, and we always do grounding practices on Thursday. And one of them was called somatic yeses and nos. And that is when your body says, yes, I really like this, and you go with it. Or maybe your body, no, I don't want to do this, and you still say yes anyway. So learning to honor what your gut instinct, your body, what it's saying, learning to trust it, learning to know what your gut instinct actually even feels like. I've learned mine's quiet. It's actually usually speculative. It's not very loud. It's not fear-based. It's like, this doesn't quite add up. Or I'm not for sure I like this. And I easily tune it out. Like, shut up. I don't agree with you, So, but learn what it sounds like so that when it speaks, you're like, I need to pay attention to that. It's been right every single time.
Yeah.
So I think it's all about that rebuilding, not only just trust in yourself, but rebuilding the skills. Because
Yeah.
when we get out of these relationships, we may never have had them well before,
Yeah.
but we really need to know what they are now, and
Yeah.
and then begin to do that. I think also it is part of it is going back to the parts of you that you lost, and then getting to know yourself again.
Yes.
Getting reacquainted with the things. I mean, I stopped writing in that relationship.
Oh, and you are such a good
Oh,
writer. You
thank you.
guys,
Yeah,
your book, the Love You More. It's such a good writer. It's the first thing that
thank
popped in my
you.
head aside from the content. Yes.
Yeah, so I stopped writing in it. I also was playing violin before. I'd sold it. I was spinning wool that got sold. So I was doing a lot of hobbies. I was quilting, but all of that kind of, and I was a huge reader, and because of the cognitive dissonance damage, reading is become harder for me. I have a harder time concentrating.
And I want to make a pause there because it's all of those things you're naming are on the sort of the creative side. And
Yes.
another thing that happens with the brain is when you are in a stress mode, even if it's creeping up and it's a low level of stress that never existed before, your brain shuts that part down immediately because, like you said, it's trying to focus on this problem that's
Yes.
unsolvable. And I heard this quote once, and I'm like, that's brilliant. They're like, when you're stressed, it's not a time to be picking out paint colors. Your brain's like, yeah. So it's like your brain's not going to let you read and imagine. It's not going to let you do your yarn. It's not going to let you, do all these do all these creative things. And because you're and have to be in a level of peace kind of to enjoy
Yes.
the creative side of your body. So all those things go
Yeah.
away. That's so interesting. You
Yeah, so
mentioned
I
that.
think it's way in the end, you need to like go back and maybe you're not going to be your old self. I might not go back to spinning wool. Actually, I'm thinking about spinning flax, doing
I
some linen.
love
I'm thinking
that.
about trying to do something new. But pick up and rediscover those things. Ask yourself, what would you like to do? What would you like to eat? Get adventurous. Try new things out. Because here's the other thing that happens to us from these relationships. We become risk averse. So
Yes.
we don't like to take chances. We get scared. But push the boundary gently. And I don't want to say go out there half cocked and do something wild, but push the boundary gently and begin to try to do new things, meet new people, try new
Yeah.
things out. Maybe go back to some of the old hobbies, but maybe pick up some new ones. But
Yeah.
because you're to me, I feel like the person that I was died, and she did die. That the person you meet and love you more, that's not me today.
Right.
I'm somebody different. But I like the new version of me, but I've had to rebuild her.
Yeah.
And
And I like to say, so you go back and you rediscover those parts, but now you get to take the pain of going through this experience and it evolves into wisdom. And the new
yes,
you that emerges is this wise version, and that you get to bring all those other parts you
yes.
liked back in.
I do think we're phoenixes in this case, that we are
Right.
rising from the ashes, that we do go through a fire and that we are turned to ash. But there is a new version that comes up, rises up out of this.
Oh, it's so true, Carrie. There are a million other things I want to ask you. I could do a 4-part series with you, seriously. But I think it's so important for people to realize what's happening. So the other thing that came to mind, even is just talking about the creative piece and parts of you that you felt like you lost, is I had a client the other day say, God, I cooked today and I haven't done that in so long. And I was like, oh, yay, let's talk about what just happened. So your brain is
Yes.
healing and you're actually starting to feel the peace. So this is a part of your healing. It's happening. And she was like, oh, I just was like, that's interesting. I feel like cooking today. And I'm like, let's acknowledge it and celebrate and say, yay,
Yes. That's awesome.
you're making progress. So
Yeah, it is. It's wonderful to begin to rediscover those things. I think the other thing that people get confused about is it doesn't mean you're not going to have setbacks. It doesn't mean that
yeah,
sometimes it does feel like sometimes 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, but you're not actually
yeah,
stepping 3 steps back. It may just be
no,
a half a step. It's just
yes,
that it feels like it. I think
yes.
another fantastic book, and I've been having my membership work through it, is Pete Walker's Complex PTSD.
Mm,
Now, Pete sets that book about childhood trauma. Wherever you see that, replace it with relationship. But I think that everything he's advising in that of sort of rediscovering yourself and healing is really good advice because it talks about the inner and outer critic and then working through a lot of grief. And I
okay.
think that's pivotal. I would say that's the last big piece to this is that there is a lot that got lost, more than just the practical stuff.
Sure.
There is your belief in yourself and the hope of the future and the hope in this relationship and the person you thought you met and then the trusting person that you were. And all of these things have been lost in this relationship. And there's a lot to grieve.
Yeah.
When we get caught, here's the other big thing that I've realized as I've been working through my healing, when we get caught and we get stuck and we do a lot of rumination and obsessing and stuff, ask yourself if this is really masking the grief,
Interesting. And
masking
would
the
you elaborate on that just a little bit
yeah.
more?
Yeah. So for example, it's like, why did they do that? I can't imagine the person would do that. What were they thinking? What was going on? If you like look below that feeling, you're like, I'm hurt somebody would do that to me. It crushed me. I'm actually angry. And if I look underneath the anger, I'm actually deeply wounded and I'm grieving those losses of that.
Mm,
And I
I
think it's
love that.
unfair and I'm angry about that. So grief often the upper levels of grief, if you don't look deep enough, you'll see it, It's like, I don't get it. I'm confused, make it make sense. But then if you look a little deeper, is I'm hurt, I'm angry, I'm betrayed, I'm really pissed off about it. But you look underneath, that is, I'm crushed, this happened. And there's the grief. If you can get to the grief, you'll stop doing all the upper stuff. It will get down into the bigger stuff and do more healing there.
I love that too, because it now just made me look at grief a different way. Instead of like, I described it like, oh, today I'm angry, today I'm sad, instead it's layered all on top of each other. So you're actually experiencing, and I love that you put the anger in there as recognizing it, because I will have some people say, I never got to the anger. I never really got mad. But the way you describe it, they did. Wow, that's very profound.
Yeah, because we do a lot of screen emotions. It's uncomfortable, because when you look at grief says, this is the part that I'm grateful for, but I'm not grateful. Losing my husband, you can't change that. He's gone, and I was at his grave. I watched him die. You can't change that. I can be very angry about all the costs that cost me. I can cry about the land that we were about ready to build on as I put it for sale. I mean, I can look at the devastation. But what it gave me is a map or a landscape of what grief looks like. When you get out of these relationships, there's a lot you can't change to happen. You can't change your naivete and that you didn't know predatory people existed. You can't change that you believed that you trusted this person was telling you the truth. You can't change that you thought that they were really motivated when they said they were, when they actually weren't. You can't change the fact that they extracted stuff that you couldn't afford to lose, and now it's permanently gone. And you and I could go on and on and on about all the losses. Those are things that are now broken. They're actually like really broken. And often what we're doing is we don't want to like sit with the fact that these things are broken. I can't get around the fact that my first husband's gone. There's no denying that. Mm-hmm. But what we often do in these relationships is we don't sit with the same level of brokenness and accept that those are actual losses. But if we can get there and do the grief, like let it hurt, really hurt, then we can start to like, okay, he's gone. Just like, let's go back to the death. He's gone. Now what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're sitting you're not in a house. You're sitting on stuff sitting in, storage. Your kids are now trying to like move on. What are you going to do? You got to do something. And then you start to like move on. But if you can't accept that it's broken, you're going to sit there and try to fix it. And there's no fixing this stuff.
Yeah. And I kind of put it as, since that is a radical acceptance, it happened. Yes. This is what it is. And the way I describe it to people is, if you don't acknowledge where you're standing, you can't move forward from it. So unless you say like he left, you were together for 20 years and he walked in and said, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. And you're completely blindsided. It happened. He left. It's gone. And I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not saying that, the fact he was having affairs, okay. None of it's acceptance of their bad behavior. It's accepting where you're standing. And I'll liken it even to directions. If I said, Kerry, how do I get to your house? You would say, well, where are you?
Right.
You have to know where I'd tell you where I was first, so you could give me directions there. If I'm in LA, it's going to be different than if I'm in New York, or
exactly.
or
you're around the corner
store. Yeah. If I'm into and so that's kind of the way that I describe it. But yeah, I think that radical acceptance is so important.
It's so important. And it's so important. And when we start to so when you start to see yourself getting really stuck in an emotion or stuck in trying to make sense, ask, what am I really actually grieving?
I love that. Okay. Dr. Kerry McAvoy, would you tell us all the things? Because we talked about the Love You More book. You have a great workbook too, First Steps to Leaving a Narcissist. You have so many books you've written because you are such a good writer. And then your website, your Instagram is amazing as well. Could you tell everyone?
Yeah, I think the biggest place to really find kind of central hub is, I do have a podcast. That's where most of my effort goes into, Breaking Free from Narcissistic Abuse. We drop content twice a week. I go live every Tuesday at 4:00 and do education. So today is going to be on people won't know because this is going to be.
And is it live on Instagram or live?
Yeah, no, It's not live on Instagram. It's live on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Substack.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Amazing. So
it's 4:00 every Tuesday Central Standard Time, and I educate for about 45 minutes. Okay. So like I said, every week is a different topic. Today is self-erasure, how they erase us, why and how they erase us.
I love that. And then you talked about your membership. What is that?
Yeah, so I have a toxic free relationship club, which is a three-tier membership where we do a lot of more education. So every level kind of depends on what you get. You come in at the base level, it's education. You come in at the second level, it's education and community support. And you come in at the top level, it's education, community, and live group support. So we do a lot of, we meet 3 times a week live.
Oh, that is amazing. I love that. I don't think that's
Yeah.
a resource a
I,
lot of people know
It's a,
exists.
yeah, I love that group too. It's amazing spending time with them. So between my podcast and the membership, that's where most of my energy is going. I am debating. I need to like start to do it. It's usually that I have an idea and then the launch is usually the hard part, the initiation. But I've been thinking about writing a companion book to Love You More, where it's a clinical breakdown of myself and him. So the relationship, like what actually is happening. So
I
to
think people would devour that.
yeah, I think people, I know that I would have loved it, that would have
Yeah.
found, I would have found it fascinating. So I thought about making it match chapter to chapter and tell you what's going on in the background.
Oh,
Why, what made me sort of set up, what was breaking concepts down, understanding a little bit more of the tactics that are being used and why it's so effective. Just giving you an
I
inside look.
love it because obviously right now we can go get memoirs or, or similar for how you would describe Love You More. And then there's the, clinical side. You're right, but I don't have never seen one that's directly broken down the
Yeah.
story, like
Because
chapter by chapter.
Yeah, because Love You More tells you my story. So people, it's not a self-help book. It's self-help in the sense of, do you recognize yourself?
Right.
It's a true, it's almost like a true crime story. That's
Yeah.
how it's written. It's written like a novel.
Yeah.
But I'd love to have a companion that mirrors it so that you can say, because people will say, they'll say all sorts of wild stuff. You'll read my reviews, you'll see the negative ones about how weak I must have been, or
Oh, God.
what codependent person I am, and the one that I really love that's very painful is, how in the world can you ever say that you're a psychologist? By the way, you may not realize them, but predators love to target therapists. That's a common
Oh,
group they target.
I know. You want to just type next to that comment like, oh, thank you for outing yourself as a predator.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but he even said that he asked me. He kept asking me. I knew this was a big piece of fascination for him. Is, if you've met me as a patient, would you have fallen in love with me? And I said, no,
Whoa.
I wouldn't have, because you're a patient. He goes, really? So I would have fallen in love with you. Wouldn't you fall in love with me? I'm like, no, I don't see my patients that way. He literally could not grasp that I would not have crossed that line, again, because I have a high degree. When I take the big five, I'm moderately high and agreeable. I'm off the chart on conscientiousness. I'm
Ah,
nearly 100%. He
okay.
truly cannot fathom that I would not breach that boundary with somebody.
Wow. But that also speaks to his pathology because he is like, I know I can get to you. You would fall in love with
Yes.
me. So like I'm
Yes.
more special than everyone. I know I could get her too. I can like it's
Yes.
so scary.
Yeah,
Read
so
between the
he
lines.
did target me because he thought that was fascinating. And I've met other people who've been targeted because they had a profession that they thought, now this profession, if I can make them fall for me, then I really am cat's meow here. I do believe that he did think that. I was
Yeah.
dumb enough to put on my dating profile that I was a widow. Don't do that. Please do not do
Thank you
that.
for that advice because
Yeah,
just like
please
you
don't do
in
that.
your in the book when the divorcee also says he was went after her and
Yeah.
predator towards that he was yeah they're looking for that.
Yeah,
Oh,
please
that's
don't do that.
interesting.
He actually told me he was looking for a widow. He was looking for a widow. I thought in my head when I heard that, oh, he just wants to understand me, because that's what it would mean if I said that. I mean, I
Yeah,
would be researching, like,
yeah,
what's the challenges of a widow?
yeah.
No, he was telling me of a group that he was searching, he was
Oh my
targeting.
God. He was like, yeah, was literally giving an insight to his predator,
Exactly. That
like
was his mark.
strategies.
His mark was, yes.
Wow. But
Yeah.
I love how you said the way you saw it because I say this in my book too, that my ex early on said I should never travel alone. And I was like, oh, he means like I should always be with him. Like he just misses me. He was literally telling me I will cheat on you.
Oh, I also thought he meant that people are going to spot a lone woman traveling. He's
Oh,
also
oh,
identifying your vulnerability too.
oh.
Yeah, because usually there's multiple
Oh, I'm sorry.
things.
He meant he should never travel alone. Like
Oh,
you should never let me travel alone. And I was like,
Oh,
oh, he
okay.
means like you should never, I never want to be away from you.
Oh no, he's
He was
telling you, no,
telling
I'm
me. He
dangerous.
was
I'm not to be trusted.
yes.
Yeah, no, they do tell on themselves. And here's the problem: is we use what's called positive projection. So
Okay.
in those moments, we fill in what we don't understand with what's true about us.
Mm,
And so that's true
yeah.
of you. It's like you're trustworthy, so you assume that you didn't know
Yeah.
what he meant.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
Oh,
me,
God.
when I heard him tell me his predator is his prey group, I thought, well, I couldn't fathom somebody would be doing that. So I
No.
didn't interpret it that way.
No, we literally, it just can't fathom it. That I can't even put another phrase on it. Can't fathom it. It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Dr. Kerry McAvoy, thank you so much for coming on today. What an incredible conversation. I know everyone is going to absolutely love this episode. And so you guys got to check out all her books. And I think I'm just going to join your membership if you don't mind.
Oh, I'd love you to. Absolutely.
Okay. Just so I can learn. And, I'm years out too, but there's always something to discover about ourselves, and we can always continue to grow.
I don't think we ever arrived. I think we're always growing.
No, and that's okay. That's okay. It's like learning to actually, when you get to the point where you're like, I'm like actually liking this journey because I'm learning new things about myself every day, and then I'm growing and your confidence grows.
I feel that way too. I don't regret the journey. It's a good one. It's worth it. It's worth it. But thank you so much. This was wonderful today.
All right. Take care, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.